All right, guys, it's Matt Moore here. Today we have a special treat, an interview with a friend, an old friend of mine. And you prefer Scotty or Scott Davis?
It depends. Either's fine, man. So many people in circles call me, different things.
Well, we'll call you Scotty because it's fun.
Cool.
So, yeah. So we got Scotty Davis with us, and he is also a crypto nut, just like I am. And it's been fun to watch him evolve over the years, as have I, and have somebody who I can relate to. But I thought it would be great to bring him on and have a conversation about some things that are taking place in the marketplace, the crypto space in general, and even the monetary system. But Scotty recently also wrote a book called The Bitcoin Basics, and you can get it on Amazon. It's a free download, I think, right? Is it
Well, I've ran a few promotions for free. It's currently, I think, $3.99.
$3.99? Okay. All right. Yeah. So yeah, Bitcoin Basics, and it's a book that's great for any new individual getting into the space on the how-tos, where-tos, and it's just a very informative book. So if you're new to the crypto space, I'd highly encourage you to go to Amazon, grab that book, support Scott and his work. It's a great read. So with that said, this interview, this conversation, just for future reference and for this reference, this is not financial advice. This is just two guys talking about their experiences and their opinions. Invest and do with your money as you wish and at your own risk. So we are not telling anybody what to do, but we are talking about what we do. So, all right, well, let's jump right into it, Scotty. I first wanted to ask you, what was your orange pill moment? Can you describe that to me?
I didn't have a huge, memorable kind of thing. It was more of a gradual, October 16 or October 2016 was my first dip into the pool. And, I've been asked a lot. I don't even remember how it got on my radar looking back. I think it was just, I'm a type 5 Enneagram guy, so I'm a researcher. And I think I'd stumbled on it probably online, started, researching it, learning about it. And then at one point got to where I was comfortable enough, I'm gonna test the waters with this. And October 2016, I bought in, was under $600 at the time, which I bought a lot more than I did.
All right.
But that's always the case with, something like this. And, just started researching it, and once I kind of had, a little skin in the game, it forced me to pay more attention to it and learn more about it. And as I did, that just kind of evolved into my convictions grew and as crazy as it seems, here we are today.
Right. Well, and what motivated you to write the book, Bitcoin Basics?
That was kind of out of a default of, over the years saying the same things, the same narrative, same answering the same questions. I just had this idea, and this was back March. We got shut down, had nothing to do, stranded, trapped in a house with 4 girls. I needed an outlet, and I thought, I'm going to compile all this knowledge and information into one little PDF where I can send to friends that ask me questions. And then that evolved into like, hey, I could do a few more things and just make this a quick little short read and help people on board and answer some basic questions. And that's kind of how it happened.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, it's definitely very clear cut, easy to understand, easy to read. I enjoyed it, so I thought it was a very helpful piece of material.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, man. So would you classify yourself as a Bitcoin maxi, or are you into other cryptos as well?
Yeah, I'm close, but I kind of view it like how we see the legacy system now. You've got a dollar, and we use that as a monetary unit to trade and exchange. But then you've got gold, silver, you've got these other stores of value, but there's not like 20 or 4,000 of them. Like we've got over 4,000 cryptos. We've got just a handful of different, devices that we use for stores of value. I kind of think that's what we're going to, trim down to eventually. It's such a new space. It's still the Wild West. Everything's still kind of learning, but one thing's pretty clear to me, that Bitcoin is the king.
Right.
It's the one that has the gravity that pulls everything else up or down. And
Right.
so that's a pretty easy probability to me.
Right. No,
But
I see it the same way. I'm majority of my holdings are in Bitcoin, and but I do see a world in where there are multiple blockchains, maybe not 3,000 blockchains, but
right,
yeah, there's going to definitely be some winners, and I'm pretty sure 90% of the altcoins will probably fail. But it's a fascinating thing to think about when you think about network effects and you think about protocols, and it's like, even the internet today is still built, the base layer is still built on some of the first protocols that they used. They just started to layer and build on top of it. So it's like, with Bitcoin, you could definitely see a multi-layered system and different, potentially different blockchains. But yeah, you got to have that fundamental, that foundational store of value function if you're going to have a purely digital ecosystem and monetary system. So I agree with you. I mean, yeah, sure. I speculate in some different projects for different reasons, and have done quite well in some of them. But my motto is speculate on all altcoins so you can buy more Bitcoin.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I had somebody, just a neighbor recently. We're out, it's snowing here like crazy, and the kids were out playing, and one of the fathers was asking me about XRP.
Yeah,
Ironically, his father-in-law was telling him about it. So that's kind of surreal in itself to me. But he was asking me my thoughts on it, and it's if you're not a trader, I really am very cautious to have people dabble in anything other than Bitcoin. Um,
right.
just because if you don't know how to read volume and chart indicators and do technical analysis, you can really lose a lot of money in it.
Oh yeah.
And there's potential. Yeah, there's upside. Like Dogecoin with one little tweet from a
Elon.
celebrity can pump a coin, right? But I mean, if you don't know how to chart and tell what's going on, you're gonna probably give your money to a trader like me. And
Right.
that's tough. But how do you explain that in a minute and a half of a conversation?
Right.
That's been the
Right.
struggle to me. Is trying to take 5 years worth of information and just
Yeah.
put it down. And I've got really good friends that I've been talking to about Bitcoin forever, and they keep asking me the same questions. And I'm like, I'm not getting through. I'm not explaining. I'm not answering it. And they're like, well, you're saying it great and eloquent, but I just don't get it. And I'm like, no, I'm not explaining it good, because if I were, you'd get it.
Right.
It is convoluted and complicated, but it's kind of like reading a contract, in legal terms. You go over
Right.
it 5 or 6 times, it starts to make sense.
You
You
know what
know,
I realized though, Scotty, and I don't know if you've had this happen, but I've noticed that it's so much easier for me to communicate Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, not so much on the technical aspect, but on the fundamental use case of it and purpose of it. People tend to understand it better when they first understand that there's a problem, because they can't understand the solution unless they know that there's an actual problem. And
right?
so once they understand how money is created and what money really is, and that it represents your time, energy, labor, and freedom, it's like, okay, so now that you know that that represents all those things, you don't want somebody to take those or steal that away from you, right? Like, and then it gets into the Federal Reserve, it gets into, all this, other stuff. But it's like, it is such an educational process
Yeah,
because, I just feel like, yes, there is a technical side of it. There's a political side of it. There's an economic side of it. So like, there's so many aspects to it, but it's such a beautiful thing once you're able to encapsulate it and understand it. And people have that, like, oh, that Neo in the Matrix moment, like, oh wow, okay, yeah, I definitely got to do something.
and that's one of the I think really cool aspects about Bitcoin is has it forces you to learn about money. It forces you to learn about economics, which leads you to learn about macroeconomics, especially when you're going through what we're going through in on a global scale.
Right.
And that's really been amazing and eye-opening to me, because I was like the average guy. I mean, we invested and whatever, and let mutual funds do their thing and whatnot. And it wasn't until Bitcoin that I really got serious about what's going on
Right.
globally and financially, and man, it's quite a time to be alive right now, you know?
Yeah, honestly, I tell people all the time, I wouldn't want to be alive any other time because despite the chaos that's coming, there's always great opportunity in that chaos. And it's like, we were born for a moment like this. And, are we going to step up to the plate? And are we going to utilize what God has given us in order to further his kingdom and to basically, you know, be aware, self-aware of what's going on? Because so many people are like, oh, I don't like politics. Oh, I don't like economics. Oh, I don't. Well, you better, because it's going to care about you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, man, I agree. And here we are, Bitcoin itself, almost $1 trillion in market capitalization. I think we have a long ways, much more to go. But I wanted to talk to you about this concept of, we know that Bitcoin has a 4-year cycle, and it correlates with the halvening, and it's been pretty, even though it doesn't repeat itself exactly, it rhymes. History often rhymes, and so it's been, that's why I think it's given me so much conviction and confidence in coming and telling people like, hey, even when we were at the bottom of the bear market, I'm like, this thing isn't over. We're going higher. This is just another bump in the road. But I say all this is, we had this thing, I think it's called Dan Held. Isn't that his name? Dan Held talks about the super cycle and how we got all these institutions onboarding, getting on. And, in the past bull market cycles, we didn't have this kind of money. We didn't have these kind of institutions. We didn't have this kind of crisis in the monetary system that we're having now. So what I was saying was, we had traditionally have had these 4-year cycles, but now we've got these institutions coming on board and all this money. Like, do you see this? I want to be careful because a lot of times we say, oh, this time is different. And I understand that mentality of we want to be careful because, we don't want to get wrecked, or we don't want to position ourselves in a poorly, positioned place just because we think things are going to be different. But is there really a moment where, we should say, okay, things truly could be different with all that's going on? So what's your take on this? Like, do you feel like we're going to have another 4-year cycle, or do you really feel like things are going to change?
I don't know. I I think both. To me, I'm kind of prepared for both, and I could see both playing out. I don't subscribe to the. I'm not a maximalist on either narrative, and I'll tell you why. I mean, like charting and trying to, get an idea of where Bitcoin is going is when things are calm and there's not a lot going on. It's possible to do. I mean, like charting isn't a crystal ball. It doesn't. There's no guarantees. It just tells you kind of like what are probable moves. And if it goes up, it's probably going to hit this target. If it goes down, it's probably going to hit this target. And
Right.
But that said, people that say, well, news doesn't matter, the fundamentals don't matter, it's all in the charts. I don't believe that at all. And I know some really great guys that are way better at trading than I am that think that. But that can get so disproven to me on my charting experience because, like, you get one tweet from Elon and it blows ascending triangle, and we broke out of that, and it's like, it's invalidated.
Right.
So news can change technical analysis, news can change the charts. And therefore, it's kind of like, man, I really sometimes question why we even do it.
Right. Well, especially in a bull market.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost just better to keep up with what's Twitter saying, what's the human psychology going, what's that saying. But I do feel like if there was ever a time we were going to have a super cycle like Dan Hill was talking about, we're definitely primed for it now because this time is different in a lot of ways. I mean, you've got serious institutional money.
Right.
You've got the largest fund manager on planet Earth allocating money into Bitcoin. You've got arguably the smartest guy, or whether you want to subjective or not, but Elon Musk and his company buying it on down the list, and they're kind of like in the minority right now. They're setting the trail, for everybody else. They're creating the trend. So it's not even, I saw a stat the other day that if 1% of all the S&P companies, or not 1%, if all of them put 1% of their treasuries into Bitcoin, it would just,
right.
caused such a huge squeeze up for Bitcoin that it's like I don't even want to talk about it. But
well, with Michael Saylor doing that for MicroStrategies, and then him holding that conference for all the corporations, and then Elon doing this, and I'm sure other companies that Elon has got some in Bitcoin or bought some Bitcoin. It's like, you know, I'm getting calls from very influential business people who have their own companies, and they're like, hey, I think I kind of want to do what they did, but on a smaller scale. Like, I'm getting calls that I never thought I would have happen. Like, I've helped people move money to the extent that I've never thought I would I would ever do. Like, it's just like big money, big business, and even your small businesses that do well. Like, they're having these conversations. I don't know if that's what you've been experiencing, but I'm seeing people have those kind of conversations.
1,000%. It's insane to me, the conversations that I've been having in just the last 2-3 months. I was telling someone about this, I can't say names, but undoubtedly the richest guy I've ever spoke to, I had a conversation with about a month ago. And he's a fund manager. And one of the most interesting things he said in the conversation to me was he bought Bitcoin before I did, like, and I got in 2016, and he got in even before I did, but he hasn't bought any more since. And I asked him why, and he said, well, the short answer was, he gave me a really eloquent answer, but the short answer was he's more interested in buying more after it gets over 100,000 a coin. I was like, what? And he said, he's looking at it from a market cap standpoint. He wants it to be a little more of a foundational standpoint, more secure,
Right.
He's looking at it from that perspective. And I was like, wow. And I thought, man, if that's what he's thinking, then what are these other incredibly wealthy people thinking when they look at it? Because the average person, I'm getting texts from the average guy saying, hey, is now a good time to buy Bitcoin. They're buying it to get rich, or they're buying it in hopes to make money. The guy I'm referring to, he's already made his money.
Right.
He's not looking at Bitcoin the same way the average guy's looking at it. He's looking at it as a way to protect the wealth he's already built.
Right.
Which, again, I mean, take that for however you want, but to me that says, man, we're not even finished once we get to 100K.
I know.
Guys like that coming in. And then, you bring up, the more exciting to me is the liquidity crisis going on right now with, Coinbase announced in the last 2 weeks they've had like 15,000 Bitcoins, removed from their exchange. People like you and me taking them off the exchange. They're running out of Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree.
And it's amazing. I mean, it's basic, simple economics, supply and demand, like whether you believe in Bitcoin or not, it's fascinating to watch this play out,
Yeah. Well, speaking of that and market capitalization and just getting started, I mean, I've made the prediction, based off of what I've been watching, and you might have similar thoughts on this, is that I'm saying $100,000 Bitcoin by June, $200,000 by October, November. And, is that where I mean, at that point, like, if it's a traditional cycle, I could imagine it kind of cooling off and maybe we go into the bear market. But if it's truly different, and like you said, these guys that are waiting to have it hit 100,000, and then they're like, okay, now I'm going to jump in and protect my wealth, and see what the policy is with the monetary system and the fiscal situation for the United States and the world. Like, there's a lot that could happen in just a matter of 6 months. Do you have any predictions with where you see Bitcoin in the next 6 months?
I don't. I'm expecting it to hit, to surpass 100K easily in the next 6 months. I mean, at the rate it's a freight train right now. At the rate it's going, I think I'm expecting it probably to hit somewhere around 68 to 80, and then do some kind of, larger retracement.
Right.
But that's also kind of my pre-wiring from other past cycles.
Right.
And if this time is a different cycle, it may not do that. So I'm not like strategically planning on that. I'm just saying kind of what I'm expecting in the playbook. But yeah, I think definitely, a 6-figure Bitcoin is highly probable at this point. I mean, I could see it hitting the 200 to 300 mark. It gets really mind blowing to me to think about like the $500,000 Bitcoin idea, because that's a $10 trillion market cap.
Right.
That's gold's market cap.
Right.
So for that to happen in the next 12 months, I would love it. And we'd be doing a video interview from my private island, but I don't know,
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, I mean, obviously I'm of the mindset, stack as many sats and as much Bitcoin as I can. And obviously at some point I will take some profits, probably mostly from my altcoins, and, take care of some stuff I need to take care of, buy some fun things that I'd like to have. But for the most part, I'm in it for the long game. I'm not here to flip it. I'm not here to, I see the writing on the wall. And so for me, I'm one of those diamond hand hodlers, that I know this game is, there's only so much of it. So, despite, stacking sats and buying something that you might want, or take care of something you take care of in the future, what do you plan to, what's some of the good? Because here's the thing that's about this monetary shift and this shift in everything that's taking place. This is as much of it as an opportunity in this crisis. Okay, so going back to my question, with all of this change happening, there's a great opportunity to do a lot of good with our BTC positions. So do you have any thoughts or plans or desires in the future to, do you have any positive actions you want to take in the future with your BTC position?
I'm sure there will be several opportunities, and my wife has kind of the lead on our charitable giving and things like that. So she's the genius in that department. I'm more of, like I said, the introverted researcher type. So I usually don't think of those great ideas. I'm all for them. I just
right.
Don't, be that way. But that said, I do definitely feel like I have somewhat of a calling to kind of educate people on this new asset class that's forming. And, I'm very passionate about wanting to help people learn it and try to take the mystery out of it, and also help them, from a security standpoint. That to me is one of the biggest key components of all of this. Is, it's one thing for somebody to sign up to a Robinhood app and start buying stuff that they really can't even transfer off of that exchange, but it's another thing to actually buy it somewhere where you can control it. And then, that's just not enough. I mean, you need to be able to make sure that you don't get SIM swapped or hacked or, lose it. You got to be very careful with this. And so explain that to someone can be very intimidating. It's like, I'm looking for an easy investment. Don't make this like impossible. Right.
Right.
But, being your own bank is very important. It's very, the possibilities are limitless. I can send you money right now and nobody can stop me. I don't need US Bank or whatever bank to think I'm a nice guy or I'm doing something legal or not. It's you and I can transact, and that's freedom. That's true freedom, right?
Right.
So you touched on something though, that another point that I wanted to make about, all these institutions and funds and everybody coming into the space and investing and buying Bitcoin. One thing I think is a very safe bet is they're not looking for a trade.
Yeah.
A short-term trade. They're not looking, to sell this thing. If they sell it in less than a year and they just put $1.5 billion into it, that's a pretty big taxable event. So, with every headline you see of a company coming in and putting 500 million in or 2 million or whatever, that kind of adds to the conviction of like, okay, this thing's on a trend and it's not down.
Right.
Right. So that's another insight to my view of all of this.
No, I agree. I think the we have gone through this threshold, and I think this moment when Elon made the announcement for Tesla, I think it'll be, before Elon and after Elon. Like he was the major domino that I think is going to cascade so many other bigger ones.
That's crazy, right? Because to me, Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy to me was like the, you know, turning point. And
Yep.
Elon, because he's the celebrity, is probably going to get all the credit for it.
Right. I think, but the way I see it, you know, you got, you know, you had Mike, you had, it's kind of like Star Wars, you know, everybody loves Luke Skywalker, but it was Yoda that made Luke Skywalker. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think,
and Sailor is definitely a Yoda when it comes to, I mean, you know, he hasn't been in it as long as me, and he's like 10,000 times more eloquent about it. And I'm like, wow, this guy. Of course, he's an MIT grad, right?
Right. Yeah. So, but hey, here's the thing that you can take confidence in. And I tell people all this time. I was like, if you were in Bitcoin before this year, you not only front run the richest man in the world, but you outsmarted somebody who was an MIT graduate and also a billionaire. You know, so it's like, you know, some people just have these different revelations in these different moments, and we all get there at a different time, different place. But it's always fun to see that look on their face when people realize what this truly is and what time period we're actually in.
Right. Yeah. When did you jump in, by the way?
It was 2017. It was probably around when Bitcoin was $800 to $1,000 is when I first started buying. And so then I had the full-fledged bull experience in 17. The thing is I had heard about Bitcoin probably 2011 or 12, around when WikiLeaks was basically cut off from their payment processors, and the only way that they could start collecting funds was with Bitcoin. Because I'm in a bunch of libertarian circles, and it's like, I kept hearing about Bitcoin, and I kind of looked into it, and I was like, this is kind of different, but it kind of seems scammy a little bit because I didn't understand it. And then as I because I've always been a gold and silver bug, hard money bug. And so it was easy for me to cross that bridge with Bitcoin, especially with the Austrian type economics with it. And so when I looked at it, and I was like, oh, this thing's about $800. It's definitely not going anywhere. So I might as well look into it. And then once I did, I was like, man, this stuff is for real. And then I started buying.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
It's crazy, isn't it? You see a lot of stuff repeating. I mean, it is cyclical. You like, you had friends, everybody was like, Uber drivers, whatever, talking about it, and then all of a sudden for 2 or 3 years, nobody talks about it, and you're you go back to being crazy again.
Right.
Now it's hitting new all-time highs, and suddenly you're
a genius.
That guy.
You are a genius.
Yeah. Real.
Well, man, this was great. I've enjoyed this conversation. Is there any last piece of information you would like to share with people if they're considering about getting into the crypto space?
Just to research it, learn about it. Don't just throw money at something because you think everybody's talking about it. I mean, like Ethereum or XRP and all these other things. Like, really learn about it before you put a penny into it. It's gambling otherwise. I mean, it's straight up gambling otherwise. I think at some point, investing in general, we're all taking a gamble, by definition. So, but and security, if you actually do start investing in Bitcoin and crypto, highly recommend checking out security. Do everything you can to tighten that down, because it's a very it's a new space, which brings all the crooks and the bad guys, because people are very vulnerable to it because they don't know a lot. So it's a feeding ground for scammers right now,
Right.
And I mean, I tell everybody, don't even click on a link in your email,
right,
or your phone. You get something from I don't care if it's Bitcoin or not. If you get something from a bank, don't click on a link. Just go right to bookmark the website. Go there. I mean, like, you have to be, playing defense.
Oh yeah.
At all times.
True. Yeah, it's true, man. It's absolutely true. And if anybody who is wanting to educate themselves more on it, don't forget Scotty has a book, The Bitcoin Basics, on Amazon. Check it out. And is there a place where people can visit you? Do you have a website, or is that mainly it?
Yeah, I've got a little humble website, thebitcoinbasics.com. That'll link right to Amazon. Yeah.
Awesome.
You can find me on Twitter. I'm official WS Davis. It's my Twitter handle. I'm there the most.
All right, cool. Awesome, man. Well, I enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for making this happen, man. We've been wanting to do this for a while.
Yeah, and we'll definitely do it again. If this recording turned out to be a bunch of crap because of my interruptions, then I'm sure it wasn't. Your information was great. I just had too many disruptions there. But we'll definitely do it again, whether it's in the coming weeks or months. But love to get your input and thought as we continue along.
Awesome, man. Looking forward to it.
All right, man. I'll chat with you later.
Yeah, cool.
All right.